The irony? How can the heart of Lebanon's hydroelectric power be surrounded by villages living in darkness? Unfortunately, this is the harsh reality for Qaraoun's lake. Built to light up the nation, yet it reflects injustice, where electricity it provides flows into distant cities. However, the people living beside its waters cook, study, and sleep by candlelight. A lake that once symbolized progress has now become a symbol of neglect, where power is generated but never shared. So here I am, standing now on the lake to speak up for those who live beside it, yet remain in its shadow. So we can ask who benefits from Qaraoun's power and who continues to pay the price. In 1959, the Qaraoun's Lake was created through the construction of the Litani River Dam as a part of the national dream, the Litani River Project. It was meant to serve people of Bekaa, South Lebanon, and Mount Lebanon by generating hydroelectric power, irrigating farmlands, and providing clean water. But this dream has faded. And today, despite having three hydroelectric stations such as Markaba, Awali, and June, the power produced is barely enough. And the people living beside this lake remain in the darkness. They suffer from daily blackouts, while others living in distant cities benefit. And as if being denied electricity wasn't enough, these same communities live beside polluted water from sewage and industrial waste, where fish are killed and public health suffer. This is not just neglect, it is injustice. Crown Lake has failed to deliver its promised electricity due to decades of mismanagement and inequality, calling for urgent reform and fair of distribution of electricity for the communities it was meant to serve. The electricity crisis at Qaraoun Lake didn't happen overnight. It's the result of years of environmental decline, climate inaction, and failed leadership. In 2025, An-Nahar reported that the lake is suffering from its worst drought since 1962, with water inflows reaching only 43 million cubic meters, about 80% lower than the historical average. Because of this, the lake's three hydroelectric stations are operating at just 12 megawatts compared to 50 megawatts in normal years and even 100 in wetter seasons. But the suffering isn't shared equally. While local residents endure daily blackouts, electricity is redirected to better connected areas like Mount Lebanon and Beirut. Meanwhile, according to the Society of the Protection of Nature in Lebanon, limited water is often prioritized for large agricultural operations in the south and the Bekaa Valley, many of which are owned by politically linked elites. To make matters worse, national water and energy policies exist on paper but are poorly enforced. SPNR reports that the Ministry of Energy and Water and the Litani River Authority often work without coordination, leading to mismanagement and the unchecked diversion of water from use. Even international efforts, such as World Bank funded projects, have failed due to the corruption and lack of oversight. So while the lake dries up and villages stay in the dark, the system continues to protect the powerful at the cost of justice. The crisis surrounding Qaraoun Lake is already inflicting real and widespread damage. Economically, local businesses like grocery shops, butcheries, and vendors who rely on refrigeration suffer devastating losses every time the power goes out. Farmers in the Bekaa Valley are forced to pump expensive groundwater just to keep crops alive, while tourism and lakeside commerce vanish as the area becomes too polluted for recreation. Health-wise, the electricity shortage puts lives at risk. Many families and pharmacies can't store vital medications like insulin, and the heavy use of diesel generators to compensate for the power gap fills the air with dangerous fumes, particularly harming children and the elderly. But beyond the immediate crisis, the long term consequences are just as severe. If the government fails to restore Karaoun's energy infrastructure, Lebanon will lose a major renewable power source and deepen the rural urban divide, forcing the country to rely even more on expensive imported fuel. This isn't just about electricity, this is about fairness, this is about health and the future of our country. Efforts to restore Qaraoun Lake's energy role have been attempted before, but they've largely failed. Donor funded projects like those from the World Bank aim to rehabilitate the infrastructure and improve water quality. But poor implementation and lack of transparency led to limited results. The original Litani River project of 1959 once provided hydroelectricity and irrigation effectively, yet over the decades, neglect and climate change have undermined its success. Moving forward, we need bold and targeted solutions. The turbines and infrastructure must be modernized to increase output from today's 12 megawatts back to their original 50 to 100 megawatts, as noted in recent reports. Water conservation policies like upstream reservoirs and hillside reforestation are also critical to restoring flow and function. But most importantly, we must act. An independent oversight body must ensure transparent, fair use of the lake's energy. Citizens, students, and NGOs must raise their voices to demand reform. And finally, power distribution must be made equitable because the communities that live beside this lake deserve more than pollution and darkness. They deserve the light that was promised to them. In short, the electricity crisis at Qaraoun's Lake is not just a technical failure, it's a social injustice. This lake was meant to empower people with clean energy, but today the communities living just a few meters away from it suffer daily blackouts, while others benefit. If we invest in restoring Qaraoun's hydroelectric system and if we ensure fair energy distribution, this lake can fulfill its promise again and can serve the people it was meant to serve, not just in theory, but in everyday life. So here I am standing in front of this lake, not just describing the problem, but to call for an action. So I urge the policymakers to prioritize repair and upgrade Qaraoun's infrastructure power and as well as you citizens to raise your voices, share this story and demand that justice flows as steadily as this water once did. Because Qaraoun doesn't just need energy, it needs people who care enough to turn the lights back on.